Hello. I seems like as if we're live on our Hangout, but just waiting to go live on the YouTube. Seems like as if we're live on our Hangout, but okay, just waiting to go live on the YouTube. Okay, I've just muted myself on the actual live sort of stream. I'm gonna just fire over a email to Paul, because Paul will be joining us tonight, so really appreciate that on Paul's part. Let me know if you guys can hear me. I had some IP issues, so I wasn't coming through, and if I want to come through properly and not have to take this video down, it'd be actually appreciated. So yeah, I mean, I haven't done a video in goodness knows how long, and I thought I'd have to cover the Brook Errol Spence fight. Fantastic fight. I had to cover it just for just for everyone else, and people have obviously said I'm going sorry, I haven't been uploading or anything like that, but as I said, sometimes life comes first, and it's just unfortunate. So I appreciate everyone who's stuck with me, and I really appreciate people who have stayed subscribed to the channel, and I will be back full time doing videos very, very shortly. Still got some stuff in order, even though I've finished education for the rest of my life, which is fantastic in some ways, I guess. But yeah, I definitely want to be making videos full time. I enjoy it, and yeah, so big shout out to everyone who's been supporting and continue to support through the lack of uploads. On to the fights. I mean, we'll kind of go from the bottom of the card yesterday upwards until Paul joins. So yeah, we'll talk about the Olympians first. The Olympians: Joe Cordina, Lawrence Okoli, and Anthony Fowler. Anthony Fowler, former GB captain, and fought at middleweight. We'll start with him first. Yeah, for me, he obviously, there's a bit of controversy. He hit the guy when he was down, and he was lucky to escape with without a DQ. He should have got DQ'd for me in that fight. For me, that was I learned a bit of Anthony Fowler. I did see bits and pieces of him in the amateurs, but for me, he has a decent jab when he uses it and commits to it properly. But when he's trying to hunt the guy down, he doesn't really use it. He kind of just forces it out. It's difficult to explain. He forces it out, but there's not really any conviction. It's a bit slow. He said he models himself after Carl Froch. If he wants a long sort of lifespan in the game, let's put it that way, he does not want to be modeling himself on Carl Froch. He definitely wants to use his amateur background and try and box and move on the back foot, or at least try and get hold the center of the ring, not just try and ball people over. I know these guys are going to go fairly quickly, but definitely I think he needs to implement a style that is more suited to his his attributes, his height and his range. I think he needs to use that. So Froch has obviously said he's got some good some good skills, and he's a better technician than Carl was. So yeah, I guess we'll see how far Anthony Fowler can go. Paul said he's joined. Paul, you're not on the Hangout yet, so I'm not sure. Let me resend you the link again, and when you join, you should come up automatically. So just give me a sec, bear with me for a minute, and I'll fire it over again. But yeah, Anthony Fowler, the jury's still out on him. So let's put it that way. Joe Cordina looks good. He hit on the break as well. He threw an illegal shot. So he's got to be careful. But Cordina looks good for me. I think he's probably the best of the lot, to be honest. And he's definitely, he's definitely got some serious skills. I think he's, at the lighter weight classes, you got people who can move a bit better, quicker as well. So yeah, Joe Cordina, he just looks a bit better than the other crop of Olympians that Eddie Hearn has recently signed. Evening, Damien. Hope you're well. Congrats to Brighton for winning the championship title as well. Hopefully, we join you this week. Yeah, so that's Cordina and Fowler. Okoli, Okoli is a dodgy one. I'll be honest. I watch Ultra Tech, fairly regularly. I watch all of his stuff. Evening, Craig. Josh Kelly looks better than Cordina. Josh Kelly is he's not an Olympian, but he definitely looks really silky for me. Him and Cordina look the best of the lot, to be honest. Better technician than Carl was. So yeah. Oh, Paul. Hello.
Hi, mate. How you doing?
Oh, hello, Paul. How are you?
I'm all right. I tried to join a couple of times and couldn't, but it seems to have worked this time. I'm using my phone, so can you hear me all right? Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you right. Coming through loud and clear. You enjoyed the fights yesterday? You catch up with any of the fights you missed, or let's get your take on it.
Yeah. Well, the main event I thought was a really good fight, high level fight. I thought Kel looked good in the beginning. I don't know if you caught last night. We kind of did a bit of a live show after the event.
I was going to join, but I think Gossip sent over the link a bit later to me, so I never got to checking the email. But yeah, I was definitely listening throughout the duration. It was good stuff.
Yeah. So I wasn't in for the rest of the fights. I only got back for that one. Okay. So I've caught up with a few of the other fights there. I've just been watching Groves Chudinov.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a little bit weird. I didn't think Groves looked great, to be quite honest.
Do you know what? I had this conversation with Irish Tom on Twitter yesterday, and for me, Groves looked really good. I don't know if that was just me, but Chudinov was making him work at a serious pace, wasn't he? So I didn't really know what to make of it. I thought after the second or third round, I thought Groves cannot keep this up, because I was watching with one of my cousins he's a very knowledgeable boxing fan. He likes to think he's a bit of a casual, but he's definitely not. He's a hardcore, and he was thinking, do you reckon Groves can keep this up? I said, do you know what? At this pace, and Chudinov's basic, he's making him look ordinary. But Groves pulled it out of the bag. I was actually really happy for him, and I thought he looked pretty decent. But he's still got holes in his game, and I think that's what makes him entertaining,
Yeah, I mean, for me, he just didn't look. He didn't look as mobile as he did even like a couple of fights ago. He just looked. I don't know. He looked a bit stuck in the mud at times, and I thought Chudinov. I hadn't seen that much of Chudinov, and like Chudinov just. Like you say, I think. What did you say? You thought he made Groves look ordinary.
No, Groves made him look ordinary at times for me. I thought he was a bit basic. Yeah. Chudinov is kind of a one-pace sort of fight. If you watched the Bullioni fight and the Felix Sturm fights, both of them, he does what he needs to do, a typical Eastern European style, comes forward with the high guard, he walks him down, but he's a bit more educated, Eubank Jr. fought his brother, Dmitry Chudinov, at middleweight when he won the interim WBA title. They have so many titles that you can't keep up, but he fought, obviously he's a lot better than his brother, but he's a small super middleweight. He's about billed as 5'9.5". He looks very small, and Groves looks
strong though. He's
very strong. He took a lot of punches.
Yeah, I mean, like Groves' punches really didn't seem to be bothering him at all, and like the one time during the night that I kind of agreed with what Kyle Froch said, like the rest of the night, he had an absolute howler for me.
Oh, yeah.
The one time he was saying, like, Groves' punches don't seem to be bothering Chudinov, and I was like, okay, you finally said something that fucking makes a bit of sense. Like, They
You,
really didn't. He looked like he was being punched by a welterweight. He just kept coming. It didn't seem to be bothering him one little bit.
yeah.
Um,
The thing with Groves, I think, is what you probably said at the start is somewhat correct. You know, he did seem a bit stuck in the mud because he was getting backed up really easily. You know, Chudinov was throwing this jab, and I thought in the first round, I don't know if you saw a tweet that I put out. I put a tweet out and I said, first round observation, Chudinov's jab is awfully slow. It's painfully
yeah,
slow.
yeah,
And he was getting backed up really easily by Chudinov. But I do think when he was when he was off the ropes and he was in the holding the center of the ring, which he did really well in the Carl Froch fights, especially maybe the Badu Jack fight to an extent in some rounds. But he seemed to his footwork has seemed a bit touch and go. It's been a bit dubious, I think, his footwork. But definitely, I think he's definitely committed to the jab a lot better at times under Shane McGuigan. And he just seems to have got his confidence back. I think he's definitely not the old George Groves that we all know, and that knocked down Carl Froch in the first fight. He had a barred burner in that first fight, but he's getting towards a level that he should have been at in the last few fights. He's getting to that level. Whether or not he beats James DeGale, Gilberto Ramirez, the other champions, Callum Smith and Durrell fighting for the vacant WBC. Whether he beats them is tough to say at the moment. I'm not really sure, to be honest. It's a tough one with George. What do you reckon?
Well, I'm not sure he does, but there's another name in that 168 division now. I don't know if you saw David Benavides fight Porky Medina.
Yeah.
He looks like the goods to me. He really looks like the goods to me. The way he dealt with Medina, and that flurry at the end that stopped Medina was
that was lethal.
That was kind of like next level for me. And like, as we know, Medina's quite a tough little son of a bitch. Like you don't I don't know. This guy Benavides kind of gone under the radar for me a little bit. Didn't really know much about him before that.
Yeah, he hasn't really got too much promotion in the States, has he? I think his brother is Jose or something like that. He fights at 140 or 147 or something.
There's a female promoter who promotes him. I had never heard of her until somebody I follow on YouTube did like a live stream where they were interviewing this woman and she mentioned him. That was what made me first sort of like think about who he was and whatnot. I forget her name even.
Yeah, that's probably why. I mean, he doesn't have the exposure, but in terms of talent, he definitely looks the part. Me and my cousin were talking yesterday, and we were saying I was asking him who do I think is the best 168 fighter. He said to me, I said potentially Gilberto Ramirez, and he goes, you know what, Ramirez is a good fighter, but we haven't really seen anything of him. He's beaten Arthur Abraham, but Arthur Abraham he does the same thing every fight, and he beat Bursak. So and Bursak's not a top level fighter, and he doesn't get any sort of exposure in the States. Bob Arum doesn't really push him. I know they were calling for the Golovkin fight, but that was all smoke and mirrors for me. So the 168 division is not it's not particularly exciting to an extent, but it's definitely got a bit of interest back with this win. George Groves is there, DeGale, Ramirez, potentially Golovkin if he beats Canelo, Benavides, and Andre Durrell, Uzkatskaya, a rematch potentially. There are some live names in the division. So
yeah, I mean, regarding Golovkin, I mean, like he's in a kind of a weird situation. If he was to beat Canelo, the age that he's at, and his size, I don't know if he's maybe like a little bit cornered because I don't see him as big enough for 168. He's not a big middleweight. I know he hits hard, but can you imagine him next to like a Gilberto Ramirez or even Callum Smith? I know Callum Smith's not, for my money, on that level talent-wise, but
I agree.
I'm just talking about size alone. I don't think Golovkin is a big middleweight, but I mean
Smith.
Sorry.
No, you can imagine Smith versus Golovkin, and imagine the height differential. It's absolutely.
It'd be like David and Goliath, wouldn't it? You'd have to be expecting Golovkin to pull a slingshot out of his back pocket or
Yeah,
something like.
quite literally. Well, anyway, before we digress slightly, but yeah,
Yeah,
Groves.
yeah.
You know, there's different opinions on him, and I guess he's back in the mix at 168. Did you happen to catch any of the other fights? I know we spoke about the Olympians just before we jumped on. I was about to dive into Jamie Cox as well. I don't know if you caught that fight, one of those fights.
No, I didn't. I probably should have thought this through more before I agreed to jump on with you, mate. No,
No.
I haven't caught a lot of them yet because, like I said, I was coming back. I was out of the city yesterday, and then I've been out again today, so I haven't really caught many of them. Only the Groves and that. But interested to hear what you thought about them, though.
Yeah, so I'll kind of give my rundown again. The Olympians, basically, I know you were on Gossip's channel yesterday, and they all had a bit of a controversy around the fights. You know, Joe Cordina kind of hit on the bell. The referee told him break, and he hit him on the bell, like as in not on the bell, on the break, and the guy kind of got pulled out by his corner after the first round. That was in the first round, and Joe Cordina got a TKO win. So a bit of controversy there. I thought he was a bit over eager in that fight, but for me, apart from Josh Kelly, Joe Cordina looks the best of the lot. You know, out of the Olympians especially. Josh Kelly's probably a bit better than him in terms of talent, but Cordina looks pretty decent. He has a bit of a bit of way to go. I think a lot of time to improve as well. Anthony Fowler, he's a former GB captain. I'm not sure if you know him, but he's a middleweight, big middleweight, and he hit the guy when he was down. Yeah, he took a knee, and I think Anthony Fowler said he thought he was holding onto the rope or something like that, and he should have been disqualified. I should have been. I'd be honest. Damien says in the chat it should have been a DQ for all three of them. So there's some discussion on that, I guess, already. Lawrence Okoli, I think I watch Ultra Tech Sports a lot, and he said he's an accident waiting to happen, and then I have to give props to him, and you know, it's basically spot on. On Lawrence Okoli swings like a wild man in a pub, a drunkard man in a pub who's just come out, and he leaves his chin up in the air, and literally he's waiting to get chinned. He's waiting to get chinned. I'm telling you. So yeah, that's
I think guys like that when they're kind of new, you know, like quite inexperienced and whatnot, they believe in their power so much that they neglect other areas, and that is, I mean, like it's an accident waiting to happen. I suppose the hope would be that, you know, they can kind of deal with some of them problems in training before it gets to the stage where he's in with somebody that's capable of doing that to him. Might be another reason why he's going in with sort of like Milkman and stuff. Like,
yeah, I mean, yeah, I did say on just the previous show I had some IT issues, so I did say it before. But I thought, you know, if they're looking to fast track Okoli, they really need to kind of you know, take a step back and really take a hard look in the mirror. You know, Lawrence Okoli, he looks to have power. Don't get me wrong, he looks to have decent power, but Eddie Hearn's talking the British cruiserweight, you know, sort of title already. Matty Askin just beat Craig Kennedy the other day, and I think Matty Askin, you know, he would blow Okoli out. I'll be honest. You know, I think he would actually beat Okoli, knock him out. So, you know, it kind of says the level he's at. You know, obviously the English title's just been vacated. They'll probably go for that next. But I honestly think he needs to take a real step back and just fight, as you said, bin men, milkmen, you know, those sort of guys. No disrespect to them, but he really needs to just beat up on guys and work on different things that he's worked on in the gym, because if he goes in there swinging like a wild man like he did, you know, on yesterday night, I advise you to go watch, you know, some of the fights, especially for the DQ reasons, but especially the Okoli fight. You know, he's really going to get found out in the next couple of fights. And Gossip said something about the betting odds. Just keep an eye on that, because, you know, you might get some value on someone to beat him. But
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to check them out shortly. But I mean, the one thing I did want to say is kind of like, I think, you can't. I don't think we're the only people that are noticing it. I mean, I noticed that about Akoli in his last fight anyway. Like he's kind of a bit wild and whatnot. I think a lot of the time, all this talk about fast tracking and world title soon and this, that, and the other, it's all smoke and mirrors. It's a way to hype him. I don't, you know, they must look at him and see these huge holes. It would be career suicide to put him in with, anybody half decent at this stage
anyway,
who's
with a
not
pulse.
ready.
Yeah. Yeah, you're spot on, mate. You're absolutely spot on.
Yeah.
It's the same with Jamie Cox. I'll be honest. We'll move on to Jamie Cox. I mean, I obviously haven't seen the fight, so I'll kind of brief you on it. So me and my cousin were having a barbecue, actually, to be honest, and we were watching the fight there with the iPad, and all I see is Jamie Cox absolutely swinging at Lewis Taylor, and Taylor's picking him off with a jab, and I'm thinking, he's just been signed. Obviously, he's had a bit of ring rust, and it's a matchroom debut. I understand he's looking to make an impression, but he looked basic in there, and they're talking. He was talking after the fight. He said he obviously won by He won by TKO. The doctor came in and stopped the fight after 7 rounds or 8 rounds, something like that. And he didn't look good. I'll be honest. Jamie Cox didn't look good, and they were talking about Groves versus Chudinov. He wants the winner because he's been ranked by the WBA now. And yeah. Do you know what? I'm not gonna really say anything more on Jamie Cox because I can see some of the comments in the chat, and I don't really have anything else to say.
Better.
I just think he's not a big super middleweight. His power is highly overrated, and that's not to say he can't be a good fighter. He could be a good fighter at a certain level, but I just don't think he'll be at super middleweight. And I've heard all these sparring stories that he's knocked out James DeGale in sparring. He's knocked out George Groves in sparring. He's knocked out light heavyweights in sparring. For me, I don't believe that. I think he's more of a middleweight, or he's probably in between super middle and middle in terms of frame. And he's just decided, you know what, let me move to super middle because I've knocked a few guys out in sparring.
Yeah, so, mate. I mean, like I said this before when it came up about AJ. It's kind of like there's always sparring rumors going about just about everyone. I can remember, like I was around during, the Lewis era, Tyson era, and there was rumors about all these getting dropped by, people that just like never amounted to anything really in that sort of on that level. And it's kind of like they're rumors until somebody does it in front of the cameras. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you're spot on because I don't really, obviously Fielding's the British champion and he's the mandatory. And, for me, Jamie Cox, if he boxes how he boxed on yesterday's bill, then I think he's really going to struggle with Fielding. And I don't think Fielding's up to much either. I thought Fielding lost the Ryder fight, I'll be honest. I know some people gave it to Fielding. It was a very close fight, but I scored it for Ryder. Just thought he was putting the pressure on and carrying the pace in the fight as well. And Fielding was really struggling with it. And you have to put on the balance of play. I just think, Jamie Cox, he get beat by someone like Fielding possibly. He could probably just walk through him, but his punches seem to have no effect at super middleweight. And Jared said he doesn't want to fight for the British title. I understand that, but he's at the level of a British title fight, or British level fighter. He's not a European fighter. Would he beat someone like Christopher Abras with consummate ease? I don't know. It's tough to say. Would he beat any other sort of European fighter at super middle? Is very, very tough. I'm not sure.
I mean, I suppose we do need to say that he was ring rust will have played a bit of a part in it, and like you said at the beginning, Jet, like his eagerness to sort of like perform, I guess, yeah, I suppose we'll probably be able to tell a bit more about him in the next couple of
Yeah,
fights.
the next few fights. I think Eddie said he
Yeah,
wants to get him out in, as much as possible, and yeah, it's difficult. We have to judge him in a few fights time. I guess that's the main thing. But
yeah. Damien said jail rust.
I thought, yeah, let's put it that way. That's why probably he left Frank because Frank didn't want to deal with him, and now Eddie's got to deal with him. But yeah, that's probably two fights in a row that he hasn't necessarily impressed the public. But I guess in a few fights' time we'll be able to see how far his ceiling is. You didn't catch the Dave Allen fight, I'm assuming either.
No, not yet. No.
Well, you didn't miss out on much, to be honest. But some controversy of Damien's asking about Allen. So Paul didn't watch the fight. Paul watched the fight, and he'll let you know the score. But I'll talk about how I saw the fight. The problems with Dave Allen and Lenroy Thomas. I thought Thomas was definitely obviously more technically sound and superior fighter. He was picking Allen off with the jab at times. He was throwing a lovely uppercut. Allen was walking into it. Allen kind of he got into range, but he wouldn't throw as much. And I don't know, he didn't look in as great shape. Neither did Lenroy Thomas, but he definitely he had Kenny Porter in the corner. I'm not sure if you knew that, but Porter was in the corner as a late sort of replacement because his trainer had a visa problem or something on the lines of that, and he couldn't fly into the UK.
No, I didn't know that. He's Jamaican, and he Lenroy Thomas.
Yeah, Lenroy Thomas. He's a Jamaican who bases himself in Miami, I think, or Florida.
Yeah.
So he definitely showed some really good skills, and I did check him out before, and he did look like he had skills, but he didn't really have the heart. And I think Dave Allen smothered a lot of his work. He got inside and he would just smother a lot of his work, and he wouldn't.
He always does. Alan always does. And I mean, like, Damon's asking there, what next for Alan? I mean,
it's really hard, because this was a breakout fight, and obviously if you watch the fight back, you'll see it. And I scored it. I'll be honest, I scored it a draw, but Lenroy had a point taken off for a low blow or something like that. So I basically scored it to Allen by 1 round. But for me, Lenroy Thomas could have easily. Well, he won the fight by 1 point on every judge's scorecard. And it was a very tight fight. You can score it how you want to score it. Carl Froch had it by 5 rounds or something like that, 5 or 7 rounds to Allen, something ridiculous like that. Allen did not, that was generous with me, probably giving it a draw. But and obviously the point taken off, so he basically won by a point. But Allen did not win that fight by any large sum. That was. And definitely the scorecards were a fair scorecard, especially for this fight.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's probably kind of reached a bit his ceiling a little bit, then, hasn't he? Like in answer to Damien's question, I mean, like he has a lot of problems outside of the ring as well.
Yeah.
He's talked a little bit about gambling issues and whatnot, and he kind of strikes me as somebody like that's got kind of like 1 or 2 problems and like I don't think he's not to be disrespectful to him or anything, I don't think he's particularly good to begin with, and a lot of guys like that kind of get by on sort of like effort and heart, and unfortunately with somebody like him, I don't think he even really has that. And so
he said in the post-fight interview, so they sat them down and they congratulated Lenroy and that sort of stuff. And Allen's obviously said, well, I wasn't good enough tonight. The better man won. Am I going to be a world champion? Probably not. I know I haven't got the talent, but I give it my all. I try my best. And obviously it wasn't my night tonight, and I'll come back. And Eddie Hearn's obviously, gone in on him. So when you watch the fight, you might want to see that IFL TV interview after. He's kind of ripped into him, to be honest. Like
Eddie did.
He's absolutely tore him a new asshole.
Oh shit!
He goes, well, Dave Allen, I gave him a chance, and he basically fucked it up or something like that on the lines of that. and obviously he was like he was a bit unprofessional. He's gone out to meet people in pubs before the fight, on the day of the fight. He he trained, but he didn't train as hard as he could, and little stuff basically. He was kind of having a go at him. Obviously, he said
I don't like that. I don't like that because I mean, like, how does Eddie know how much he trained? I doubt Eddie was there for one. And for two, Eddie's never put a pair of gloves on in his life. So I think that's kind of a bit. I
yeah,
mean, I haven't seen it or whatever, but just on first hearing that, it comes across as slightly distasteful to me.
yeah. I mean, I mean, he does have a point, a little bit, in terms of not the training part, but definitely the going out on the day of the fight to see people in pubs and have a chat with them. He said, if you want to win titles and you want to win fights, you've got to keep your head switched on. Sorry, on the day of the fight, especially on the week of the fight, especially weeks before you can do what you want and put the hard graft in as well. But on the week of the fight, you got to be on. You got to be on the game. And he said that was a bit unprofessional. So he said he's going to give him another chance and get him on. But he basically said I gave him an opportunity and he mucked it up and that sort of stuff. So I guess it is. Damien said, mind you, he did tweet going to Nando's on the day of the fight. Who wants to join him? So
okay.
he's basically calling Alan a bit.
He might have a point then, eh? And I suppose how he performed in the ring is evidence enough as well. And if he didn't do too well, then I suppose,
exactly.
yeah.
Dave Allen's in a tough situation with the domestic sort of heavyweight scene now because I think some of the guys have put it out, and I kind of knew off the top of my head anyway. But Nathan Gorman's there, Josh Sandlin's there, Dominic Akinlade's there. There's other guys that that potentially are a level above him. I'm not saying all of those guys are, but they'll definitely look at him. Daniel Dubois. They'll look at Dave Allen as a potential, name because he seems to be he is very, very popular. He got a massive ovation walking into the stadium on yesterday in Sheffield. So they're definitely going to look at him as a popular guy, and they're going to, he's a beatable guy. I can get a good name on my record and kind of move onwards and upwards, and
Yeah.
you don't want that from Dave Allen. Dave Allen seems like a really nice guy. I am a fan of him. But
yeah, he does seem like a nice guy. Just I'm gonna have to go in a couple of minutes, but I did want to ask you one thing before I go. What do you think's next for Cal Brook?
Do you know what? I saw a tweet from him today. I retweeted it, and he said, "I will be back. Don't worry, guys. Thanks for the support." Something like that. I think I've been thinking long and hard about this. It seems a bit weird, but if he moves up to 154, he's going to be facing guys who are naturally bigger, naturally stronger, and they're beasts up there at 154. You see some of the guys, they're huge, and
well, I mean, Charlo's are both way bigger than him. Demetrius Andrade's bigger than him. What you got? Lara up there. Yeah, because this is what I was thinking. Like, I don't know. I really don't know where he goes. I think if the Khan fight can be made, maybe a cash out and then leave it alone. Because I was saying this last night, kind of like people were talking about the eye injury, and it's a different eye, it's a different eye, but it's kind of like depending on how that injury was in the Golovkin fight. Yeah, depending on how far over some of those sort of like cracks went. That could have weakened the structure, and that could have been what's made his other eye go. And you've now got a situation with him where he's kind of like it's looking like he's done the other orbital. I mean, like,
my cousin asked me which one was it, and I said he's done the other eye now. So basically, he's got two dodgy eyes now, and he's been in grueling fights. Don't get me wrong, he's not a shot fighter, but he's definitely past his prime, and it's going to be tough. The realistic route, if he's going to go to 154, which I probably think he will do, or his team will push him to go to 154, is obviously Cotto's fighting Kamagai in August time for the vacant WBO title. I think that's his best route to, at 154. The other guys are simply too big for him, too strong for him. Not that he's not more naturally talented than them, which he probably is, maybe one or two, but the other, they're just too big. They're just too big.
Yeah, Cotto's a decent money fight as well, I
Yeah,
suppose, because
yeah.
Kel will still have a bit of
Name value.
yeah.
So that's that. To answer your question, I think if he was going to go to 154, I do think that's the route he's probably going to have to go down. Lara's too big. Jamal Charlo, the bigger punchy Charlo, he's moved up, so that title belt's vacant. If he wants to fight for a vacant, he probably could get it because he's a former IBF champ, so they'll probably rank him quite high. WBO, as I said, vacant, but Cotto, if Cotto wins that fight against Kamagai, he could win. He could probably beat Cotto. And Jamel, he's big. I don't think he's as good, but he's quite big. And Demetrius Andrade is WBA regular, so it's tough. I don't know. It's tough. I like Brook, but it's he's taken a couple of beatings, and it's been very, very disturbing to see. Let's put it that way.
Some fighters are just at this natural sort of like disadvantage, aren't they? Where they're kind of like not really big enough, or they're not really tall enough for the weight above, but they're chunky or whatever, and so they struggle to make.
Yeah, they're stuck
I
between
think
two weights,
it's
isn't
similar
it?
to Gervonta Davis. Like he seems to be struggling to make weight at the minute, and yet I don't know if he's really big. Like if he moves up, he's with Garcia, Linares, cuts like that, and it's kind of like you just worry for guys like that. It's kind of like they're almost cornered in a way,
Yeah, 100%, mate. I think you obviously have weight classes for a reason, and weight cuts. They're always going to be a part of the industry, but it is harder on some people. And I know Amir Khan was saying it's hard for me to weight 147 again, and I'm not an Amir Khan hater, but he just opens his mouth at the wrong time, and he just needs to appreciate that Brook's gone for a grueling fight. They've both gone for grueling fights, brutal knockouts as well. So they just need to kind of, not bury the hatchet, but leave it alone. If they're not going to fight, that just forget it now. Stop going at each other's throat. It's just pointless. And
I mean, I'm not a Khan hater either, but he looked kind of gleeful when they interviewed him after that fight last night. He looked quite happy.
You know what? Me and my cousin, we actually turned this because we bought the pay-per-view actually just to prevent it from cutting out or whatever, but we turned it off. He goes, "Oh, Amir Khan's talking. I'm not listening to it." He turned the stream off. He was like, "I can't deal with this guy." And I was like, "Mate, let's." And we went off to go get some food after. And I was like, "Let's." I was like, "Let's get out of the house. I can't listen to this guy. It gives me a bloody headache." And he started laughing. I mean, Amir Khan, he just talks, but he hasn't backed it up yet. It's difficult for me to make 147. He's a slimmer guy. He's a more sort of chiseled in terms of he's a thinner guy than Kell Brook.
Yeah.
Kell Brook looked absolutely ripped at the weight. There wasn't an ounce of body fat on him, I reckon.
No.
On the look of it. So just some of the things he says is outrageous.
Yeah, I mean, he's another one that kind of like, and this is the problem with both Brook and Khan. I think is like both of them looked earlier on in their careers to have a huge amount of potential. I don't think either of them really fulfilled.
Yeah, I
you know what I mean.
Agree. Yeah, I gotta agree with you there, mate. It's difficult, man. Do you know what? Because Kell Brook at one point was probably seen as the next pound for pound star after Carl Froch. Probably the next sort of pay-per-view fighter as well after Carl Froch. And he's kind of just not. I wouldn't say he's regressed, but he's come against fighters that have been great. In terms of.
Well, I think he's been badly managed. I think there's been things that weren't his fault, like him getting stabbed and whatnot. But I just think like the Golovkin move was a bad move. I think like who goes up 2 weight classes and then back down 2 weight classes? It's going to end in tears, isn't it? I mean,
like Roy Jones, isn't it? And he completely messed up his career after. And I think Johnny Nelson actually on a Sky Sports article, and he said it might be a Roy Jones Jr. effect or something like that.
And I mean that eye injury as well. If you look back at fighters that have had that eye injury, Paulie Malignaggi had that injury, never looked the same again after it. Yeah. Antonio Margarito never looked the same again after that Pacquiao fight. like it's it when you're going in against a big puncher like that, if you haven't got the power to keep them off you, then you're just going to get picked off, and that's kind of what we've seen. And I think, the earlier rounds showed me that Kell Brook, if he'd have had as much as he had before that, I think he would have
I thought he would have won the
possibly
fight, to be honest.
I think he possibly would have won the fight. I really think that the body shots combined with with killing himself to make weight were a big part of why. Because towards the end of that fight, he looked like he couldn't lift his arms. He was trying to throw punches, but they just weren't having any effect anymore.
Yeah,
And I just think, he's kind of like he's got to take the blame for a lot of that himself. He's the one that said, yeah, I'll fight Golovkin and whatnot, and you know. This is the
I don't think he
result.
needed the Spence fight either. You know, you have to give him a lot of credit for taking the Spence fight. Don't get me wrong, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I don't think he needed the fight in terms of he put up a great showing against Golovkin. He gave him more than a few problems in that fight in September, but he's really gone down. He's gone down 2 weight classes. He's going to probably go back up to 154 now. So he's doing it as a service to his body, and he tends to fluctuate in weight outside the ring as well. We saw him, what is that, 170 or something, like 175 at one point. So, and
yeah,
he's not necessarily a tall guy. So yeah, there's questions whether he lives the life outside the ring, and there's other questions to answer. Obviously, some factors not in his control. For example, the stabbing. So,
yeah,
Kell Brook's had an up and down career, and it's a question of what might have been. And for me, that obviously he's won a world title, so it's not like he'll go down to someone like a Kevin Mitchell or something like that. But who was supremely talented also, but he just he started too late in terms of he sorted his life out too late.
mm.
Just Brook in terms of sheer talent, we I guess we've missed out a lot on him, and
No, I
yeah,
agree. I completely agree. I mean, like when you look back at his career, you're gonna what all we're gonna really remember is he beat Sean Porter and got iced by Triple G and then lost to Errol Spence. I very much doubt there are more sort of like career defining world title fights on the horizon for Kell Brook. I know I could be wrong and there might be, but that's kind of how I feel. I don't think there will be.
yeah. I think at 147 it's a bit tough now because he's killing himself to make the weight. You can obviously see it. And at 154, the fighters there are, they're bigger, naturally, physically stronger. It's really hard for me to see Brook win a world title at 154 unless he faces someone like a Cotto, who's a smaller 154, or a Kamagai, that beatable sort of champion. It's hard to see that. I have to give credit to Spence. Spence did well, but for me, if the best Brook showed up in that fight, for me, he could have won that fight. Not
Yeah.
not easily, but he could have won that fight going down the stretch. He just had no energy. I think you're spot on with what you said, mate.
Yeah, I completely agree. And the thing is, as well, at 154 is kind of like not only the guy's big, not only is he going to struggle with that factor, but there's other than Cotto, there's no real big names there either. And
Yeah,
Kell Brook does like how long have we been hearing him going on about like I want the big fights, I want the big names. He clearly and fair enough, I'm not slagging him for it, but I'm just stating the fact he clearly wants big money fights, big name fights, and there ain't no big names at 154. Lara, is he really a big name? Not really.
not really. No, you could probably chuck him in with what Liam Smith, Liam Williams winner or something like that. But
Ooh,
I doubt that will never happen. Before
yeah.
you jump off, one last question. Damien's asking, who do you guys pick, Spence versus Thurman? I put my neck out in the chat and I've said Spence. I'm gonna pick Spence. I think Thurman's a bit shaky. He's a bit of a lesser version of Kell Brook for me in terms of overall attributes, but obviously he seemed to make the weight better last time, Thurman. What's your opinion?
Oh, it's a good question. Obviously, I'd have to think about it a bit more, but kind of like initial. I've never really been um a guy that was hugely sold on Thurman.
Yeah,
Like, like Thurman's the next big thing. I've never really looked at Thurman and saw that. Don't get me wrong, he's a decent fighter, but I've never looked at Thurman and been totally sold on him. Um, I think I think Spence is very heavy-handed. He's very young. He's got a lot of momentum going now. I think he's very, very confident to come into a fight like this in totally alien land and in a totally alien environment and perform like that, coming back from a fight that he was clearly losing. For me anyway, I thought he was clearly losing up until
yeah,
about
yeah.
the sixth round. I thought he was losing the fight. Um, I think I'd have to side with Spence. Um, I just think he is probably kind of like gonna rule that division for a while now. I mean, the only other fighter that I think has any chance of kind of like, not any chance, obviously Thurman's got a chance, but a good chance of kind of like beating him is Pacquiao. I think if Pacquiao fights like he fought against Bradley, depending on how much Pacquiao's actually got left, I think Pacquiao could really give Spence some problems, because if you notice, Kel's speed seemed to be really bamboozling him in those early rounds. Now I know Pacquiao isn't the size um
Brook.
of Brook, but he's certainly got the hand speed, and I think Pacquiao could give him huge problems.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you there. I think if Crawford also moves up as well after he beats Ndongo, then yeah, I think that's a potential opponent. Errol Spence versus Crawford would be a massive fight.
Yeah, yeah.
It happened that I picked Crawford in that fight, but if that fight is ever made, it'll be a great fight. Let's put it that way.
It will be, mate. Anyway, look, I've got to go. Thanks for having me on, Joe. I
No
appreciate it.
problem. I appreciate you jumping on, and we'll catch you on Wednesday if you're around.
Yeah, I'll be there, man. I'll be there. Nice one, guys.
Have a good one, man.
Cheers,
Take care,
everyone. All right, man. Bye.
buddy. Okay, and so that was Paul. Really appreciate Paul jumping on, and yeah, hopefully we catch up soon on Wednesday. Just a few more bits until I jump off. Really appreciate everyone who's been in the chat, who's been watching and supporting. Big shout out to you guys, and yeah, just keep supporting, hit the thumbs up, and yeah, keep doing the business. The scoring for me, the scoring in the Spence Brook fight was dubious to say the least. The judges' scorecard, one had it 5 rounds to Spence. I think I'll say what I think after. One had it 3 rounds to Spence. One had it 1 round to Spence. For me, I had the fight level going into that that final penultimate round, and yeah, I think the 11th he got knocked down. He got knocked down at the 10th. So I had Spence winning by a point or two. To have him winning maybe by 5, that is borderline. I don't know what to say. When you're lost for words, I think it's a bit pathetic, to be honest. 5 rounds suspense is as bad as Martin Murray winning by about 11 rounds against Gabe Rosado or something like that. So yeah, it was pretty poor. YouTube, that is true. Spence was winning by 5 rounds on one of the judges' scorecard. So I have to be the bearer of bad news. Yeah, it was embarrassing. I mean, in terms of the rest of the scoring, I didn't find it too bad. I don't know the Grove scoring. Yeah, Jared has it close as well in the chat. So it seems like I'm not the only guy who had it close. I mean, even in the rounds that Spence was winning, or you could have gave to Spence, there was an argument that he lost maybe all of the first 6 rounds, or at least 5 of the 6 rounds, 5 of the first 6 rounds. And I know Irish Tom actually said this on Twitter. So shout out to Irish Tom. But for me, just I can I couldn't believe that Spence was winning by 5 rounds. It was awful. So yeah, let me know what you guys, anyone else thinks on the scoring, but it was that was very bad. Maybe I can understand 3 with the 2 knockdowns, because obviously he's kind of fell down Brook in the 11th, but he got knocked down in the 10th. So I can understand 3, but I did 2. Yeah, Jared had him losing, Spence losing 5 of the first 6. So yeah, it's pretty much the same what I had, and Jack Gardner had Spence by 1. So I mean, I think on this channel we're all kind of unanimous in saying that Spence did not win, as many rounds as the judges were giving him. So yeah, it's a bit poor. Yeah, and Damien said after 6 he had it 5-1, and at worst he had it 4-2 to Brook. Yeah, I can understand 5-1 or 4-2. It was, this British scoring is very dodgy. We have to make a video, I think, on this. This YouTube sort of stuff. People come on and say, British scoring is not that bad. The proof is in the pudding here. We can't say Spence was winning every single round. You might as well have given every single round to Spence just based on aggression. It doesn't make any sense. Cleaner, crisper work was coming from Kell Brook. He obviously faded in the latter part of the fight, but it's becoming a real problem. It's a cancer in the sport. In British boxing, I've said it multiple times on the BG podcast. It's a cancer in Britain. We slate Germany. It is bad, Germany, don't get me wrong. America is bad to an extent at times, don't get me wrong. But in Britain, it's a dodgy scorecard either way. Not just for the home fighter, but for the away fighter. The Thomas scorecards were I felt decent. I felt if they gave one card to Thomas, one card to Allen and the rest of Thomas, I wouldn't have been disappointed. And I said that when I was talking to my cousin while watching the fight. We said this might be a split decision. Obviously went for Thomas in all by 1 point, but the main event was dodgy. YouTube says Paul Murata in Japan. Yes, that was a very, very dodgy scorecard there. Can't believe they robbed the actual home fighter. But as Dwyer says, Damien said good to see WBA suspend judges this week due to poor scoring. Yeah, Relic beat Bartholomew. I still have to watch that fight. If anyone has a link to the fight, please send it to me. I would really, really appreciate that, because I want to watch that fight. Yeah, it's every card now. Jared says, I have to agree, mate. I have to agree. At least one fight, and as you said, at least one fight, it turns out to be some horrendous scoring. And the thing is, it's getting worse and worse. It seems like there's no end to it. So yeah, we're gonna have to make a video on that, guys. Why it happens. Relic beat Burns. Yes, he did. I scored it for Relic. Relic gets no decisions. That's because he's a Ricky Hatton fighter. I probably don't know Ricky Hatton, but yeah, Relic's a decent fighter in his own right. That's my opinion. But yeah, I mean, we're gonna have to make a video on that and stop all the Twitter abusers and YouTube abusers saying, "Oh, British boxing doesn't have a problem." It's fantastic. It's working. The pay-per-view model is working. There's a lot of problems in British boxing, and I'm gonna do something different with it. I'm gonna put some stuff on Twitter. I'm gonna release some stuff on this sort of. I'm gonna add a new segment to the channel and discuss and try and get some discussion on these controversial topics. Jack Gardner, Froch's scorecards. You know what? Briefly discuss Froch because I do want to jump off in the next few minutes. But yeah, Carl Froch had an absolute stinker of a night, to be honest. What topped it off for me, he stood up and applauded George Groves. I couldn't actually help but laugh. It was, and I saw a picture on Twitter, and it was a picture of him clapping, obviously, and it said #raging, and I think that probably sums it up succinctly. And yeah, he definitely needs to keep his mouth shut at times in the on the commentary booth, because he says stupid things, and I have no interest in listening to him, or Amir Khan for that matter. You know, they were talking nonsense, and I just thought the overall sort of commentary and punditry analysis was pretty poor. You know, for this event and the fight itself, it didn't deserve that kind of poor sort of, you know, analysis. But it is what it is. We're not always going to get Paul Dempsey. So yeah, at least it wasn't Steve Bunce, who gives me an absolute headache and supports it to the well, I don't know. Steve Bunce and Carl Froch are probably pretty similar. Let's put it that way. You know, they're god darn awful. You can't listen to them talking about the fights. But yeah, I think that's a night for me. Really appreciate everyone who's jumped on. We've had a maximum of 15 people watching. So I really appreciate you 15. You've been, you know, you are the hardcore, and you guys support the channel. We obviously we have 14. We have 9 likes. Please whack the thumbs up button. Please, you know, support the channel. We've been away for a long time. I think it's been about 6 months. I'll be honest, 6-7 months, maybe slightly longer, and all my fault. But you know, sometimes the saying is that, you know, life gets in the way. So yeah, I obviously try to make it more consistent. I do have plenty of other stuff I've got to do, and I am a very busy guy, unfortunately. So yeah, just keep supporting Twitter. My Twitter handle's in the you know, in the description below. And yeah, I just want to thank everyone for the support. I really appreciate it. And to all the haters, big middle finger to you guys, and actually a big thumbs up, because I love you guys. You guys spur me on, and yeah, I don't care about anyone's opinion. They're the positive people. Yeah, shout out to you guys. And yeah, that's a night for me. Take care, all you legends, and catch you next time. Peace.